My husband's secret affair destroyed our marriage, so I divorced him. I'm Sharon, 33, and my husband Ethan, 36, and I have been married for 4 years. Ethan was the man of my dreams when we met. Kind, hardworking, and absolutely devoted to our family. When we first got married, everything felt perfect. But things started to change after about a year and a half. He seemed less motivated at work, and I could tell his stress was taking a toll on him. At first, I did everything I could to support him. I took on more financial responsibilities to keep us afloat, paying over 70% of the bills. I cooked his favorite meals, reassured him that I loved him, and reminded him that we would get through anything together. But something was wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ethan's story. It didn't add up. He claimed he'd been demoted, yet the drop in income didn't make sense. My gut told me to dig a little deeper, so I decided to call an old friend, who happened to be his boss. When I reached out to Paul, he paused, almost like he didn't know if he should say anything. Then he finally said it. Ethan hadn't been demoted. He'd been fired months ago for sexual misconduct. He was caught with a female coworker having sex in his office. He asked, "Didn't you get the message I sent you months ago?" I replied, "What message?" That's when it hit me. Ethan must have deleted it before I could read it. "So it's true then?" I said, my heart sinking as the truth unfolded. My heart dropped. It felt like someone punched me in the gut, and I sat there in stunned silence. I asked Paul if he was joking, but he assured me he wasn't. My mind raced with questions. How could Ethan keep something like this from me? Who was he sleeping with? Who was this woman from his work? Where had he been going every day? Ethan knew my past. He knew how badly I'd been hurt by infidelity before. It felt like a twisted nightmare. I wanted answers, but more than anything, I wanted to confront him. I was angry, heartbroken, and I couldn't wait another day to find out the truth. That night, I waited on the couch for Ethan to return. When he came in at 6 p.m., he said, "Hey, baby, work was exhausting today." I swallowed my anger and played along. "You can tell me all about it, but why don't you get a shower first?" I could hardly keep the fury from showing on my face. Once he was in the bathroom, I took a deep breath, grabbed a bottle of baby oil, and poured it onto the bathroom floor. When he stepped out, he slipped, and I was waiting, belt in hand. The shock in his eyes fueled my anger. I started hitting him with the belt as he scrambled to get up, slipping and falling again on the oily floor. "What the hell, Sharon?" he shouted. "You think I don't know?" I yelled back, my voice breaking. "Where do you go every day, Ethan? Who is she?" He stammered. "It's not what you think. I can explain." The disbelief and hurt in my chest grew as he tried to talk his way out of it. I could barely hear his excuses. This wasn't just about money, it was about betrayal, about him lying and taking advantage of my support. I dropped the belt, looked at him in disgust, and packed a bag. Ethan followed me to the front door, begging for another chance, but I was already out. I drove straight to my parents' house where I told them everything. They were furious, and when Ethan showed up banging on the door, my father warned him to leave. Ethan became aggressive, so my dad, a retired police chief, grabbed his shotgun and made it clear that he wasn't afraid to use it. That was enough to send Ethan away, and I was finally safe. The next few weeks were a blur of sadness and disbelief. I stayed in my childhood bedroom, barely eating or sleeping. My heart ached for the man I thought I knew, but I knew I had to find out the truth. A few days later, Paul called to check on me and told me the name of the woman Ethan was with, a woman named Sophia. She was going through a divorce because of their affair. Finding out about Sophia was the last straw. I had been blindsided, humiliated, and forced to carry the weight of our marriage alone, all while he was secretly with another woman. Knowing he had been spending his days with her while I kept us afloat and nurtured our home made me feel foolish and betrayed. I immediately filed for divorce, blocking his number and refusing to take any more of his desperate calls. I didn't owe him any more of my time or my heart, but Ethan still found ways to try and reach me. He showed up outside my parents' house one evening, calling out to me and begging me to come down and talk. My mom and dad watched in silence, ready to stand by me but not interfering. I listened as he poured out every excuse in the book. "Sharon, I made a mistake," he said, his voice breaking. "You're giving up on us without even letting me explain." His words only made my anger flare. Giving up? Was he really accusing me of giving up on our marriage? I stared at him, my heart pounding, and told him exactly what I thought. "You stepped out of this marriage the moment you cheated, Ethan," I said, my voice cracking with the weight of my anger and grief. "You're the one who lied to me, hid the truth, and forced me to support us without telling me why. I sacrificed everything to make you happy, but it wasn't enough for you, was it?" He had no response. He looked down, defeated, and finally, he signed the divorce papers. A part of me thought I'd feel relieved, that I'd celebrate the end of the nightmare and find peace. But instead, I felt hollow. I had spent years loving this man, sharing my life, my dreams, and my heart, only to have him shatter it all. In the weeks that followed, I focused on taking care of myself. It wasn't easy, and I struggled with memories of the good times we had, wondering where things went wrong. But slowly, I found strength in my own independence, realizing that I didn't need to rely on someone who could hurt me so deeply. Paul kept in touch, checking on me every so often, and so did my parents. Little by little, I built a new life, free of secrets and lies. I still don't understand why Ethan did what he did, and maybe I never will. But I know now that I deserve someone who respects me enough to be honest and faithful. If you're reading this and you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone. It's hard to walk away, especially when you still love the person who hurt you. But sometimes, loving yourself enough to leave is the most powerful thing you can do. Update. It's been a year since my marriage to Ethan ended. Healing wasn't easy, but in time, I found a sense of peace and rediscovered parts of myself I had forgotten. I threw myself into work, spent time with friends and family, and focused on rebuilding my life. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't looking backward. I was finally looking forward. But as life often does, just when I thought I'd sworn off dating for good, someone new came into my life. Nuri's. His name was Alex. I met him at a local bookstore on a Saturday afternoon. I was on my way out, juggling a stack of books, when I bumped into him. Literally. My books scattered all over the floor, and as I scrambled to pick them up, he knelt down to help me. "Rough day?" he asked, smiling as he handed me a book. His kindness caught me off guard, and for a moment, I almost forgot how to respond. "Something like that," I replied, smiling back. What started as a brief encounter turned into coffee at a nearby cafe. We talked for hours, sharing stories and laughing like old friends. There was something genuine and refreshing about him, something that made me feel safe and comfortable, in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Alex was patient, gentle, and he respected my boundaries without question. I told him about my past, how my trust had been shattered, and how it left scars that hadn't fully healed. Instead of judgment, he offered empathy. He listened, not just to my words, but to the feelings I'd buried underneath them. And slowly, I let my guard down. A few months into dating, I knew I was falling for him. It terrified me, but it also felt right. With Alex, I felt like I could breathe. There were no secrets, no lies, just two people building something honest and real. Then, one evening, as we were leaving a restaurant, I saw a familiar figure across the street. It was Ethan. He looked different. Thinner, worn down. For a second, our eyes met, and my stomach twisted with a mix of pity and frustration. I quickly turned away, focusing on Alex, who gently squeezed my hand, reassuring me without even needing to ask what was wrong. Later that night, Ethan texted me. It was a simple message. "I miss you." I didn't reply, but his messages continued over the next few weeks, each one more desperate than the last. He apologized repeatedly, saying he wanted a second chance, that he'd learned his lesson, but I had moved on from that chapter of my life. I didn't owe him anything, and I certainly didn't owe him a response. A few days later, Alex and I were having a quiet night in when my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, and Alex noticed. "Is it him?" he asked softly. I nodded. "Yeah, he's been trying to reach out." Alex's expression remained calm, but he could see the unease in my eyes. "Do you want me to say something?" he offered. "No," I said, putting my phone down. "I think it's time I said something myself." I drafted a short final message to Ethan. "Please stop contacting me. I'm happy now and I've moved on. I hope you can too." It was a hard message to send, and part of me felt a pang of guilt. But deep down, I knew that Ethan and I were over. I was no longer the woman who would let him manipulate her or question her own worth. I had grown, and I was with someone who valued me for who I was. Ethan didn't reply, and over the next few months, his messages stopped. I could feel the finality of it settling in, and it was liberating. With Alex by my side, I had found a new kind of happiness, one based on respect, trust, and love. Looking back, I don't regret any of it, because it led me here to this moment, with someone who genuinely cares about me. To anyone who's been through the pain of betrayal and heartbreak, know that healing is possible. Sometimes life has a way of giving us a second chance, and this time, it's with the right person.